Thanks for tuning in to As the Tire Turns podcast. Before we dive into this week's episode, I'd like to thank our sponsor, AME International. Tire professionals insist on AME. I'd also like to recognize the AACF. For over 65 years, the Automotive Aftermarket Charitable Foundation has stood by those in the automotive aftermarket industry and their families during life's toughest challenges. Since 1959, with the incredible support of industry partners, AACF has provided vital assistance to individuals and families facing financial hardship due to unforeseen circumstances, such as floods, earthquakes, storms, fires, catastrophic medical conditions, life-changing accidents, devastating fatalities, and more. AACF offers a straightforward application process and a quick turnaround time for those needing support during critical moments. Visit www.aftermarketcharity.org to access the application and learn more about how AACF can assist during times of need. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of our automotive aftermarket family. Support AACF today. And now, As the Tire Turns. So we are back with another episode of As the Tire Turns. Today I'm joined by the Tire Industry Association CEO, Dick Gust. Dick, thank you for joining us today.
Great to be with you, Cleve. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely.
Beautiful Las Vegas.
I was going to say, we're the Red Rock Resort and the OTR Conference has been good for getting a lot of people that I had planned to meet with during this. So one thing that we've done on this series is I'm always intrigued about somebody's story as to how they get into the tire industry.
It's a long story.
Well, we've only got about 25 minutes.
You don't have enough time for the whole story.
Okay, I'll take the bridge.
My dad, believe it or not, worked in an auto center.
Okay.
And he ran an auto center back in the day for Montgomery Ward.
Funny, I was just going to ask, like Sears or Montgomery Ward?
Montgomery Ward. And at that time, it was called Wards. They were very successful, and he had transferred to different facilities as he moved up through their system, and ultimately became the manager. And so my career in tires really started when I was about 8.
Okay.
And he would invite me down. The stores were open on Saturday nights then, and I would go through an old bin of used tires and actually pull out rocks, paint them black, and they became saleable used tires. I received 10 cents a tire.
Wow.
And back in the day, that was enough to buy a nice RC Cola and a Snickers candy bar. So I was probably the lead guy in my 5th grade class who was earning a living at that point. So
unbelievable.
And then, from there, I grew up in a town of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, went to college in Wisconsin, and had a chemistry degree. And while I was going to school, I really couldn't afford college, so I started working during the summers at Union Tire Plant as a tire builder. And so I began putting together tires and assembling them, and probably that was the highest experience I could have had in the tire industry. No one can fool me on what goes into a tire and how they're made.
Yeah.
When I graduated in chemistry, Unioil offered me a position in the product development department.
Okay.
And so I designed tires. One of the first tires I designed is an off-the-road 3651.
Really?
And we used to sell them up in the Iron Range of Minnesota. So I'd travel up there and look at the tires that we had put together from my product development days, and see how they performed. And then I progressed through the different ranks of tire plants at Unioil, and worked in production, worked in quality control. And then I had an opportunity. Sears had an ad for somebody who was supposed to help them with their tire buying group, and as like a product engineer. And so I got the job, went to Sears Tower, and spent about 5 years traveling the world with Sears buyers buying tires.
Okay.
And we were really one of the first at that time to introduce the Michelin radial tire into Sears.
Huh.
And so did that, had a great opportunity, traveled to Asia extensively, did a lot of work in the plants over there, able to drive the Ledoux test track in Michelin in France. And I managed to take a nice car out in the cornfield at that point. But, it was we were testing the forces to keep pulling it.
Putting it through its paces.
Yes, and so then after that, I was charged by Sears to look at our retread program, because retreading at one time was pretty popular. We sold a lot of retreads at Sears through the catalog, and it had declined. And
passenger and light truck?
Passenger and light truck.
Yeah, probably pre-SUV even. Yeah.
It did, and you know, it was a time where we were a lot of cost pressures because the Asian tires were just coming in. But the Lakin family, Louis Lakin specifically, came to me, and at Sears, I was supposed to oversee a plant because he wanted to put up the best quality production plant to make, at that time, passenger retreads. And they were, so we went actually to Europe, looked at the equipment. We put together a plant that made bead-to-bead retreads. You couldn't tell the difference from a new tire. We actually made white walls and raised white letter retread tires. We call them remanufactured tires. And got kind of in trouble with the Attorney General of Alaska because he wanted us to explain why they were. So we went up there and told him and showed him, and we were able to get support. And that's how we ended up at Lakin. And then when retreading really passenger light truck was challenged, tremendously challenged from cost pressure. We couldn't sell a retread tire for $20 if you could get a Chinese radial for $19.
Yeah.
So that plant, we went out of business. It became a strip mall, which was a lot more lucrative.
Yeah.
And but we had, because of our venture, we had a lot of casings, and we had programs to build casings into our facility through a lot of collection networks. So we shifted and became a tire recycler. We went out into the country and developed a program that generated business with all the major tire retailers now, collecting their scrap tires.
So when
finding a home for them.
Somebody comes in and buys a new set of tires and they have that tire disposal fee, that is going toward the collection and.
The disposal fee, actually, it's two-sided, because a lot of states require a disposal fee to send to the state.
Okay.
Then retailers on the top of that charge their own fee.
Gotcha.
And a portion of that, not all that, but a portion of that goes back to the tire recyclers collecting the tires.
Okay.
So it's an economic situation, but to the point where we built that up into a business where we were, like I said, collecting from every one of the majors, and I could list them all the major retailers we had in our collection network. And if we couldn't reach them ourselves, we built like agents in the field who collected on our behalf, and then we managed that environmental tire from that perspective and found home. We bought shredders. We did a lot of work that way. And subsequently, a private equity group came along and bought us Lakin in Chicago, and that turned into Liberty Tire Recycling, and I kept up with Liberty Tire Recycling in their business after they purchased Lakin. I had a % ownership of Lakin, not as much as I would have liked, but it was a % that the family had given me. And so then when it went to Liberty, I became the president of their national accounts.
Okay.
And continued to handle those. And then here I am. I'd always been on the board of the old ITRA. I mean, I've been associated with the TIA, forerunner of TIA, which was the International Tire and Rubber Association. I was on that side because of my retread recycling experience.
Sure.
Went through the whole negotiating team that brought together the two associations, the retread and the retreaders, and now we are TIA back in 2001.
Yep.
So I was part of that negotiation, spent a lot of years then as a board member, was president in 2004, 2005. And when the position, and worked very closely with Roy Littlefield. I chaired the government affairs group, so I've been very active in that, testified a lot in front of Congress. And I have a good technical background, so that was really beneficial as we built up our training program. As a matter of fact, I was part of the group that hired Kevin Rowling.
Yep.
And so from that association, when Roy decided to retire, I thought, I might want to change my career a little bit here and just continue overseeing the association, because I have tremendous respect for it, the people involved in it, and I just didn't want it to maybe go in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And here we are today, and it's great to be talking to you as president.
Yeah, that's
right.
right.
I wouldn't have met you if, truthfully. I mean,
That's
paths
true.
didn't really cross until we became association members. And
correct.
I think it's a testimonial to what associations do. I mean, it brings you in contact with great people in the industry that really help each other in this business.
Yeah.
So that's my long story that I tried to shorten.
No, that was good, and I didn't know most of that. So you've really, especially the tire building, right? Whether you call it from cradle to grave or womb to tomb, right? You've worked in the birth of the tires, and then with Lake and Liberty, right? You're at the end of life, and how do we take this and find something, a new purpose or a new use. And I know there is rubber modified asphalt is one of those, right? There's some ways that we're looking to avoid these large stockpiles, of tires and find another use. And then of course here at the Off the Road Conference, you'll suddenly see where or you'll see speakers that talk about pyrolysis, I think, and trying to extract carbon black, and can they do it efficiently and so on. So
absolutely,
that's certainly evolving, and you've kind of had a front row seat for.
Well, I started out my career designing tires not to fail, and I'm ended my career on that side of the business, tearing tires apart.
Yeah.
And so, but having the knowledge of what chemicals go in, what processes go in, was really beneficial as you want to talk about shredding or pyrolysis or various processes that you use to extract oil or carbon black.
Yeah.
So, and we're at the OTR conference right now, and really OTR tires on the front line of recycling. Too many of them are not recycled. Too many of them, because of economics, go back into a mine or left on the land.
Yeah.
And those are really valuable tires that I think we should extract the raw materials and use them for valued products.
Yeah.
So, and we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're on the cusp here of a really good system, I think, that's going to help us with that.
Yeah. So you mentioned Roy Littlefield, and of course he was, I think, maybe fresh out of college or had worked on the Hill and took over, I believe it would have been the NTDRA at that point, and then went through the merger and so on. So you've succeeded him, and what's that like when somebody's been somewhat of an icon in the industry and been there for so many years and so on? What's that been like filling those shoes?
It's kind of been a very interesting scenario because Roy really started when we had merged the associations. It was the ITRA and the NTDRA at that time. When we merged it and named it Tire Industry Association, I remember Larry Morgan was there, Tom Rabin was there, and I was there. We're like the three presidents coming through. And we really hired Roy. And Roy had been the government affairs person for the old ITRA, but he also served because he was in Washington for the NTDRA. So he wore two hats. He was really good at understanding our industry, but also he had the connections. So, coming through it, I'd worked with Roy for well over 25 years in different capacities. And coming into it differently, I look at it, I'm coming out of a private sector where, I had to run a business. I mean, you meet payroll, you have a lot of different things to do. Government affairs is a little different side. So when we were building our government affairs team, Roy was really into that. And I was more involved from the ITDRA standpoint in the technical side. Like I mentioned earlier, we hired Kevin Rowling. We recognized that training was needed. Safety training was absolutely needed in our industry, and that was going to be the way that we grew our association. So Roy and I kind of complemented each other. He drew me in a lot. Like I said, he would bring me in off into Washington, and we spent time down on the Hill talking to various legislative people about various subjects, and that was valuable to me. So when Roy decided to retire, then, and that's one because I'd worked so many years there, I knew how associations worked for my years there. And finally, it was difficult of actually being in there and now taking over his office, and he goes into a smaller corner.
Yeah.
And then it even was more complicated because he had his son running government relations too.
By the name of
so I had two Roys.
Right.
And so then, working through. But I feel like I oversee the government affairs, whereas Roy was Roy the third was more into that area, and the administration was run with Sandra and those folks who do that extremely well. Well, I looked at my job as the overseer of it all.
Yeah.
And I expect those people to, the Sandras of the world, the Kevins of the world, to take their individual departments, and then I oversee that. So it was a little different. I took on a little different role. I looked at the CEO job as a little different than Roy. Roy had the responsibility, but he allowed the others to do a little bit more. Now I'm more active in trying to pursue other sources of revenue and expanding training, as you know. But I'm still involved in government affairs right now. Today, I've had 4 phone calls dealing with rubber modified asphalt because we're trying to get a law passed in Maryland.
Yeah.
And so, I spend a lot of my time still overseeing that, working very closely with Roy Ford and the stakeholders in that. And we're building a coalition. I mean, we have the Institute of Scrap Recycling, we have the U.S. Tire Manufacturers Association involved, so we're bringing them all together, and we want to make Maryland a model now for rubber modified asphalt. And that's coming together. There's a hearing tomorrow, which we're going to miss, but we've already testified.
That's great.
So.
Well, and that's a great segue, because I think so many people, when they think TIA or the Tire Industry Association, recognize the training, and that gets a lot of visibility, as it should. I think of equal importance, right, but maybe a little less sexy, is that government affairs. And can you talk about, when I try and explain it, I say, TIA, they want to help educate rather than legislate, right? But I guess can you talk a little bit about the importance of having a large association, so that when you do have something that comes up, where I always say, like, a well-intentioned senator or representative thinks, I'm going to write this, we're going to make this law, and if it's burdensome to the dealers, right, the ability to be able to rally.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that the unfortunate part is many of our members, because we often work in government affairs behind closed doors, and you may see the moment when we're testifying on a certain rule or regulation, but they don't see the 3 days a week when Roy Ford is down at the Capitol, going from office to office, spreading our word or concerns. We do position papers, as you well know. We approve position papers. Those are distributed to every one of the legislative people. So we do a lot of background work.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that, you said it's not sexy, and it really isn't, because it's a lot of leather on the feet going down the Capitol Hill. And a lot of personal relationships are developed. But those relationships oftentimes then lead to being on the forefront when bills happen. And because the way legislative people work is that these young staffers don't know what happens in industry. So when we're there all the time, if something comes up related to small business, tires, tire recycling, they will actually call us and say, what's your opinion on this? Right. And give us your thoughts on this, because we don't want to be out there with something that's going to conflict. And so we've been able to put ourselves in that position very well. And that's what, it's a little bit frustrating, because we're not appreciated as much as I think we should be. It's a real member benefit that's oftentimes overlooked. Now, some of the major tire dealers and retailers right now may have their own lobbying people. They pay a tremendous amount of money to hire their own lobbyists. When we pull together, we're actually a voice at the table for all those independent dealers. We have over 13,000 members, as you know.
Yeah.
And so when we walk into one of the offices of a senator or a congressman and say, we represent over 13,000 small businesses in every state, and it's a $60 billion industry, the tire replacement industry. So it's big.
Yeah.
It's a lot more powerful than an independent dealer trying to go into a Senate and say, I don't like this bill. Right. It's going to hurt me.
Yeah.
Well, when you have someone saying, 13,000 people in every individual businesses don't like it. Yeah. Then they listen more. Yeah. And so it's a distinct benefit. But, to your point here, it's a lot of back room, back scenes, spending time with relationships, and making sure they understand what our positions are. And we work very hard at that. That's
a good point. You mentioned USTMA and trying as you want to have that one voice, right, and represent as much of people as possible. And I know that's one of your goals right, is to strengthen the relationship between the Tire Industry Association and USTMA, and actually here at the conference, I think we've got a representative here. Maybe is that for the first time from USTMA?
John actually came when we were in Hawaii a few years ago, and we did a joint seminar on scrap tire recycling.
Okay.
So we had some forays into that earlier in terms of relationship building. Scrap tires actually gave us an avenue to cooperate more, because it's a goal that we all have. USTMA really is, they represent the tire manufacturers. They do it well, and oftentimes tire manufacturers have a little different take on certain issues that tire dealers would have or recyclers would have. So over the years, I feel that relationship has not been as close as it could be. I think that if we were able to talk more before we ever went with a public announcement of something and negotiate between us, we could come to a lot better understanding of almost every issue.
Yeah.
And so my goal has been to do that. I really developed an excellent relationship with Ann Forstall, Luke, the CEO of USTMA now. We call and talk to each other. I mean, that wasn't done 4 years ago.
Correct.
And I've known John Sheeran, who is the director of scrap tire management for the USTMA. I've known him since I dealt with him in Bridgestone.
Okay.
And so he is a guy that we can work very well with. And when we're here, we're going to make a special announcement that indicates even more cooperation, a true partnership on helping the industry find, finally, product that can be made from scrap tires and using the scrap tire material into value products and really attacking it as a complete industry. And it's exciting. This is something that I think is going to really make another industry of products from scrap tires. It's going to develop a better use, and the tire dealers are going to benefit, because if you make that material more valuable, it could potentially, at least it'll sustain their costs of getting the tire disposed, or maybe even reduce it if you can find more value in that. The OTR people are really going to really consider the support, because right at the moment there's legislation introduced in a couple of states called extended producer responsibility. And that will force manufacturers to get a third-party system in place to handle scrap tires. It's not needed because scrap tires are managed, but again, you mentioned earlier how oftentimes legislation, it's irrelevant whether it's needed or not. You know, I mean, they give us a solution in search of a problem. Yeah. And this is the case with EPR. But nonetheless, you can see if we don't as an industry step up and solve that situation where people perceive the scrap tires to be on the ground or something, then we're going to be regulated into it. And what we can do right now by cooperating with the USTMA is developing a system that's going to be a foundation where we really go out and do a lot of work from research, a lot of work developing products, a lot of work doing marketing, looking at grants that are out there for infrastructure funding, and really put all of our collective heads together and solve the problem. Yeah, we can.
Excellent. And it's having been on the board with the exception of 2 years since 2009, I believe is when I was elected. It's the first time where there's been talk of the relationship with USTMA, in positive. I shouldn't say positive, but really viewing it as a somewhat of a partnership, right? And us working together. So that's exciting to hear. Speaking of being on the board and coming into this year, serving as president. I knew how unique and how special the staff was from being around them and so on. But with you now being as CEO, do you find the same things? Like I tell people, my year as president, right, is relatively easy because the association is well run and well organized, and they make me look good. And do you find the same thing with respect to your role?
Well, our goal is making you look good. Yeah, I mean, that's our goal. And so,
it's a tough task.
You just said we're doing a good job because it makes you look good. So, I mean, But no, I found coming in, there is a difference in managing a business and coming in. And even though I've been around associations for some time, being on the inside of it, you still have, you're a nonprofit all of a sudden. Whereas, I was in for profit.
Yeah.
Still need profit to run the association.
You still have to have profit.
But it's a little different set when you talk to the IRS on how to manage it. But we had, so I've been learning a lot about association management. Did a lot of research on association management since I've been there. And so the roles of the board versus the roles of the staff.
Sure.
But I find that the people we have in Bowie and our trainers out in the field are outstanding people.
Yeah.
And we really are fortunate to have had them. And it's really a testimonial to the fact that Kevin's built up the training program the way he has. I mean, the fact that we have Matt White and Sean, and we have Jose, and now Ryan on board training. I hope to keep growing that, in terms of how many trainers, and I hope we can reach even farther around the globe.
Yeah.
And Sandra, I mean, she is a really terrific financial person, administrative person, and she's kept Tia out of trouble for a long time, knowing how we should do things.
Absolutely.
And so that's fantastic. LaKisha, of course, I can't say enough about her work in events. Look at how well OTR is right now. This OTR event we have this year, we have 537 delegates. We have almost 37 states, I think, 13 countries. This is the highest group we've had. Sponsorships, we have over 74 sponsors.
Yeah.
It's the best one we've ever put on, and I expect it to even be better next year.
Yeah.
And so, I've really benefited by the quality of people. When you think we only have 18 staff people, the work that gets done by those 18 people is phenomenal.
Yeah, I would agree. And we're both going to be on stage shortly, kicking off the first day of the conference. But LaKisha, in particular, I'm going to thank the staff and everything that goes into the organization. But she'll be behind the scenes and probably won't even hear me thank her. So hopefully she'll be listening to this. So I'm going to say, LaKisha, thank you so much, and even I apologize because I realize coming in that when you're part of a group, any little request that you have runs through the group, and so you can't do anything without it impacting LaKisha. And so me trying to just get a little space for us to do this was texts, and I'm sure she sleeps, but she was late night communicating back and forth, and she does it. She always does it with a smile, and so it's noted and it's appreciated. So
she looks after all of us as if we're her children.
Yeah.
And around the office, she calls herself Aunt LaKisha.
Aunt LaKisha.
And so a lot of people rely upon her, and they think she can perform miracles.
Yeah.
Some people forget to register on time.
Yeah.
Or get their hotel time done properly,
Yeah.
and she somehow pulls it out of her hat.
I've done a couple for leisure, some small groups of 10 or 12 or 15 people getting together, and I use the descriptions like herding cats. So I can't imagine an event this size, trying to make it all run smooth. So
exactly.
All right, because we're going to be on stage, I'm not going to ask you necessarily to physically loosen your tie and let go, but you are a great steward for the industry, and I want to pull out of you something that really we don't know about Dick Gust, right? Kind of, I don't want to say let your hair down, right? But something that might surprise our audience, and it could be a passion, could be some other work or something that you've done. It sounds like it's been tires, from the get-go. But what's something that you can tell us that most of the people here don't know?
When I was young, I wanted to be a professional baseball player.
Okay.
And I played in college. I was captain of my college team. Played a lot of sport, baseball. I played every sport, but baseball was my sport. And played with some really, really great players. Dave Winfield, played against Dave Winfield.
Really?
And I said this to the California tire dealers in the way you go. I hit a home run off of Satchel Paige.
No kidding.
And now Satchel was about 72 and I was 18.
Yeah, but still.
But still, it was Satchel Paige. So, I mean, it was like a badge of honor for her. So most people don't realize that I really love baseball. I would have loved to play. I wanted to always be a third baseman for the Yankees. And,
was that what you played, third base?
Yeah, I played third base. And, because, third basemen have strong arms, and in those leagues in college, and if they needed a closer or a pitcher, I just throw a fastball several times.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I always have that little soft spot that, maybe I could make a comeback.
Yeah.
But I'm getting past my prime.
Yeah,
I don't know if you noticed that.
Well, fun.
But that's one of the things I will always remember, and and some really quality people played. Yeah. Joe Torre.
Joe Torre.
Joe Torre played minor league baseball in the town where I lived, and he was a catcher at the time, and he was about 19. And Joe Torre's hands were like a catcher's mitt.
Yeah.
And I remember he came out to our little league practice, and we were really running and sliding. He was showing a sliding practice.
Yeah.
So I'm going to impress Joe Torre, and I come into third base hard, and I think I tore the back of my pants. I really, and he looked down at me with those big Brooklyn eyes and reached down with his paw, which is his hand.
Yeah.
He said, "Did you get hurt?" "Oh, no, I'm fine, Joe."
Yeah.
And I went home and I had literally, they called it a strawberry, on your leg from sliding in those days. I wouldn't admit that to Joe. But so it's some fun times.
Well, interestingly, and that's why I love trying to find something out, I grew up playing baseball. Played third base.
Did you? Okay.
And my grandfather sold suits for a living, worked at a clothing store in downtown Wilmington, and he became friends with Judy Johnson. You probably don't know that name, but Judy Johnson is in the Baseball Hall of Fame. He played in the Negro Leagues.
Yeah.
And so he claimed, right, you don't know, right, but he claims he taught Satchel Paige how to throw, I don't know, a curveball. I don't remember. We met him, went over to the house, and so on. So, of course, Satchel Paige, I think, played for the Pittsburgh Crawfords, maybe. And I think he eventually then crossed over into the major leagues.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. When we played him, he played on a traveling team in the Negro League called the Indianapolis Clowns.
Okay.
And so they would travel in, and it would be an exhibition game that I played against them. And again, it was our semi-pro team. I was playing third base for. And we had a lot of former minor league, major league players on the team. I mean, who had washed out and been there. When he came, and he hung a curveball.
Yeah.
I can still see it floating in. But he said to me, and I'm rounding the bases, that it wasn't very nice. He said, "You wouldn't have done that to me when I was your age."
Yeah.
And I said, "I'm sure I wouldn't have."
Well, that's
but
great.
I mean, I had a really great time and met a lot of great people playing.
Yeah.
And it was fun. You can relate third base,
Absolutely. I didn't play at a high level, right? In fact, I quit playing, eventually switched to basketball throughout high school, but nonetheless, still a baseball fan. So who's your team?
Well, I was a Cubs fan because of Chicago connection, and then after I moved to Wisconsin, I liked the Brewers for a while.
Okay.
But I always had the sweet spot because I wanted to play for the Yankees.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was kind of torn.
Yeah.
But always more root for the Cubbies and
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well,
who can beat Wrigley Field?
No, correct. The friendly confines.
Yeah.
And it truly
Absolutely.
is. Yeah. All right.
Well,
is there anything that you'd like to cover that we haven't addressed?
No. I mean, I just want to say that I think this is a great idea that you have putting these podcasts together. Maybe we should continue this on in areas because I think it's a great way today to get our message out to people. What I really want everyone to understand is that membership in our association is something that industry should value. And the support is something of members that's really overlooked by a lot of people. And those who participate in the industry should become members to help support the industry.
Yeah.
And government affairs is so key. So, as you know, I mean, just participate, meet people. It's so much better for your business when you do that.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're an advocate. You understand that very clearly.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to grow that way. We'll grow that way.
Even the training, one of the things that haven't participated, and we host a couple of trainings each year, the Earth Mover training, that's a lonely gig, right? Those techs are almost always out in the field solo.
Yeah.
And so for them to come and practice and see not only how somebody else does something, but then to share some best practices, or what do you do in this case, or what do you do in that scenario, to me it's invaluable. And to watch guys, exchange numbers and have a reference and somebody they can reach out to. But you see that across all avenues and aspects. And so it's...
Well, Keith, it's all about safety, and particularly when you're dealing with tires that could fall over and injure you severely. And that's one of the things that I think these technicians understand, and they want to help everybody in the industry be better. There's competition in the industry, but there's no competition when it comes to safety.
No, exactly right.
And so that's really what we're about, and I think you're seeing it. Earth Mover is a perfect example of that, because you're dealing with passionate people out there who really get their hands dirty in the industry for us and do a great job. And so I really want to expand our training program, like I said earlier, as far as we can, and reach as many people as we can.
Sure.
Because it means your employees go home at night in a safe manner, and the consumers the customers are safe.
That's the job.
So something we should do. So that's our mission.
There you go. Exactly. Tire safety starts here, right?
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, Dick, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Thank you.
And we appreciate it, and we will see you next time on As the Tire Turns. Thanks for listening to As the Tire Turns. Tune in next week when we sit down with guest Cohen Vandermeersch from 102 PSI and the Chief Librarian of the Global OTR Library.